Hey everyone, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. In this case, replying to a question that I got from my previous video, the one where I talked about Argentina freezing food prices for 2 months. And I also talked about the government not allowing certain grocery stores and certain food groups from advertising in the media outlets that they're up against. And someone was asking why would they do this? What's the purpose of the government not allowing companies to advertise in certain newspapers and such? And I can see why it is that, you know, it may be surprising to some people, but as this video goes on, I suppose you're going to be understanding a little bit more and maybe seeing a few similarities with what happens in your own country, so have a little bit of patience with me. So as to understand this better, you first have to comprehend that the media is a very powerful group. The media is a force to be reckoned with. They influence public opinion very strongly. They can even decide the outcome of elections, how popular or unpopular a government is. And this, I suppose, is something you're already identifying it with, given recent elections in US and such. The media can portray someone as a hero, as a complete villain, or ignore him completely. It was funny when Ron Paul, for example, was completely ignored by channels in US. In some cases, even when he was ranking in the top 3, they would mention the first, the second guy, and the fourth guy, but jump him completely because, you know, it was specifically on purpose not to mention the guy. They didn't want him to have any support, any screen time. So you just don't talk about the guy. That's the best thing you can do. So, or portray him like a villain. Of course, any mud you have, you can throw him. You can throw it his way. So, first of all, the media it is powerful. All right, it is a force. So the Argentine government, the Kirchner government that has been running the country since the economic collapse. First it was Mr. Kirchner, then his wife, and then, you know, she got reelected. So it's basically almost a decade of the same people running the government. So one of the things they realized was that yes, we control the law, we control absolutely everything, but we don't control the media in Argentina. What happens, and again, this is something that will depend on where you are. In most countries, the main media outlets, the main news channels may be directly owned by the government, so that's already taken care of. You know, the government owns the channel you're watching, so of course there's not going to be much said against the own government. Either that, or the guys that own the different media groups that you see are actually part of larger groups that actually influence who gets elected or not. So it's basically the same thing. You know, what was happening in Argentina was that the main media group called Clarín was not either owned by the government or controlled by the government in some other way. It was actually pretty much opposed in many ways to the government. So the Argentine government decided that, okay, we control everything, we have to control the media so as to make sure we can get perpetually re-elected, you know, influence the public opinion. And it's interesting when you see all this. The Argentine government, the K government, basically controls everything. They also control what's getting educated, the education. They send their people, they do campaigns for small kids. They go into the public schools and they already start brainwashing. They made sure there's a class for primary school students that's like civilian education class, something like that. It's just, you know, government propaganda brainwashing the kids. But understanding that they had to do something about this media group, the Clarín. Clarín is the largest media group still in the country. Clarín and La Nación would be the other one. Those are the two ones that are the largest ones, the ones that people actually watch, because when you have one channel that is just public official propaganda and you have one that's actually telling the truth of what's going on, then of course people watch the one that is truthful. So what would happen, for example, is that Clarín, if there's a murder, they just go there, they film the incident, what happened, they run a report on it, and, you know, people get murdered in Buenos Aires every single day. So they would maybe cover a murder and then another and such. And, you know, just showing one per day is not being biased in any way when maybe 20 people are getting killed that same day in different violent incidents. But the government would say that it was a media outlet that is against them. Basically, the government in Argentina sees it as, if they don't control it, it's against them. and basically that's a huge problem, because anything that you're not controlling, you're considering your enemy, and you have to do something about it. So what the government in Argentina did basically was, in 2009 they passed what is called the Kirchner Media Law, or officially known as Ley de Medios Audiovisuales, which, it's just a name. But basically this law is supposedly so as to ensure the plurality and freedom of speech. And the way it does so is by nailing the largest media groups and forcing them to downscale and sell. So it is basically a law specifically designed so as to attack their enemy, Clarín, a news group that has the majority of the media outlets through the country, by forcing them to sell and downscale in those parts that the Clarín group ends up selling are getting bought by either officialist groups, or groups directly sponsored and financed by the government itself, or just bought by the government itself in different districts and such. So it's all gonna be. It's funny how, and ironic how, a law that is supposed to give plurality and diversity of opinion, and it's promoted that way. It's promoted as the Antimonopoly law. Is actually just a way of controlling themselves everything. So that's what's being done on legal matters, right? They did their own law, and the Clarín group is very strong and powerful, being how large it is. So they have their army of lawyers fighting this. But on the other hand, there's also more dirty and unlawful attacks by the government. They either get publicly nailed or attacked, or censorship of what's getting said. That sometimes they cut down their channel if there's something particularly bad being said about the government, especially in the provinces. Whenever there's a program going on that's speaking against the government, or showing some of the stuff that the government does, corruption, it just gets cut off, and they put, for example, school football, or even just primary school football, they just put that instead of putting what's actually being said. So it is kind of a dirty war, and this is just part of that dirty war from the government against the Clarín news group. They're forcing, one of the other ways in which it's clearly attacking it is by forcing the people that advertise in Clarín newspaper, forcing them not to advertise with them anymore. So they're basically cutting their funding as much as they can. So that's basically it. That's why a government would be very much interested in not allowing certain companies from advertising. That's why a government is very much interested in controlling the media and how you see the president that you have, or the president that you're going to be having soon enough, and if he's a saint, if he's a messiah or the savior or not. That's the kind of thing that governments do, folks, if you get what I'm going for here. So unfortunately, these things happen. I hope they don't happen in your specific country, wherever it is that you're watching this from, but you get the idea. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Take care, have a great day, see you on our next video.